Koe, Ninda Luisi Holly Mathieson. I'm the music director of Symphony Nova Scotia, and it's my pleasure to introduce you to the works that we're going to be performing in our fifth and final concert in our Spotlight series for this year. The shining gem in this concert for me is Stacey Brown's new commission, Don't Touch the Middle Switch, which I have to say is probably one of the coolest titles I've ever heard for a piece of music. Stacey won the 2019 edition of our Maria Anna Mozart Award, which is our very own award for emerging and professional women composers, and it's the only award of its kind in Canada to specifically support the work of women. The award is made possible with the generosity and vision of Halifax resident and Symphony Nova Scotia supporter, Dr. Jane Gordon. Dr. Gordon taught sociology and women's history in Halifax for 40 years and is a huge supporter of the orchestra and of getting women's music out there and really championing it. The premiere of Stacey's piece was delayed by COVID-19, but the list of all the concerts that we'd had to get rid of in that season, this piece was at the top of the things that we really wanted to postpone rather than cancel. So it's a huge pleasure to finally be able to bring the piece to life for you. We're delighted that we get to give the world premiere, and we're incredibly grateful to Dr. Gordon for her support and vision in establishing this award. Sitting around Stacey's world premiere are three works by composers who had really similar starts. They were all young, virtuosic pianists with bright careers ahead of them, but for very different reasons, their careers went in very different paths. We start with an overture by Fanny Mendelssohn, and if her name sounds familiar, it might be because you've heard of her brother Felix, who went on to have the career that Fanny would have had her gender not gotten in the way. As a child, Fanny was considered just as talented, if not more so, than her brother Felix. But both Felix and her father, probably out of a sense of protecting her and love as much as anything else, although it's difficult to see it now, really discouraged her from publishing and pursuing her composing career. In her father's words, "Music will perhaps become a profession for your brother Felix, but for you it can and must only be an ornament." So like many female composers in the 19th century, she never got a chance to really write for the orchestra, let alone develop that area of her practice. This work sits alone as the only solely orchestral work that she ever wrote. She conducted the premiere in 1830, but the piece was never published until 1994, long time after her death. So she never got to realize how popular the work would become. And it has. It's now staple repertoire for orchestras around the world. It's a very grand Germanic work with a slow introduction that leads to a lively main section. And it shows she had great craft and skill and knowledge of the structure and the architecture of writing a piece like this. But the melodic and harmonic writing is really quixotic and virtuosic. So we can see she had this great education and incredible aptitude to the craft of it, but she also had a really individualistic and unique compositional voice. On the other side of Stacey Brown's premiere, we have the Overture, Scherzo and Finale by Robert Schumann, who, like Fanny, was a brilliant young pianist, and it was commonly felt that this was a young man who was going to go on and be one of the great solo pianists of Europe. But he got an injury and had to stop playing professionally. Luckily for us, he didn't give up music completely. He turned his attention to composing. He wrote an enormous number of great piano works, but also managed to get into orchestral writing. And unlike Fanny, he was able to develop this. And it became a really natural instrument for his writing. His music is some of my favorite orchestral music to play. There's something about the way he writes that's incredibly tender and generous and warm. All of the instruments breathe very naturally somehow in his music. So it's a delight to bring this music to you, and it gives us a little hint at, oh gosh, what would have happened for Fanny Mendelssohn if she'd been able to develop in the way he did. After the interval, we have the work of another virtuosic young pianist, but in this case someone who kept playing and had a huge career as one of the most popular soloists of his day, Frdric Chopin. Now he wrote, like Schumann, a huge amount of exquisite piano music, but only 2 piano concertos and no symphonic writing at all. He didn't really like writing for the orchestra. It wasn't a natural thing for him to write in the way it had been for Robert Schumann and could have been for Fanny Mendelssohn had she had the chance. To help us bring this work to life, we have renowned Chopin interpreter, Canadian-born Janina Fialkowska. And it's such a pleasure to have a genius of the Chopin tradition helping to bring this work to life. And it really is a work for the soloists, not the orchestra. So it's very fitting that she join us for this. Hopefully that's whet your appetite for the concert. It's been my pleasure to introduce these pieces to you, and I hope we'll see you at the concert hall to hear them live. If not, don't worry, we will be live streaming, so please do join us online.